Well, welcome to Speaking of Horses. I'm your host, Wayne Williams, and we're ready to go right here with some of the great stories from the horse industry. So join us as we get ready to go speaking of horses right here on this station. And today, we're going to take another journey into the world of horses. My guest is a lady who resides in San Antonio, Texas, Val Heart. Val, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Wayne. I'm delighted to be here. I love talking about my favorite topic, which is horses.
Well, why don't you just enlighten us a little bit? Tell us what it is that you do with horses.
You bet. My job, I'm basically a horse whisperer. So my job is to enhance horse behavior, health, performance. I have what I've developed as an equine peak performance 5-step system, and it does an extraordinary job of helping horses achieve their true potential. So anytime you got a problem with your horse, to me, the very first place to start is talking to them. If they know what's going on, and if we partner up with them, then they can help us solve problems. And so, I actually got my start working with show horses. So that's a little bit about what I do.
Okay, so let's say somebody calls you and say, I've got a horse, and there's some kind of issue with the horse.
Yes.
And I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out. How do you first start if you're going to help these people?
I love that. That's exactly what my clients come to me with. They say, I've got a mystery lameness issue, my trainer can't help us advance anymore, we're stuck, the vet's given up, we don't know what to do to help the horse anymore, or I've got a resistant, or aggressive, or I've got a problem horse. And so the very first thing I do, and the first step in the equine peak performance system, is to hear them. We need to hear them. We need to know what's important to them. What are they in pain? Are they confused? Do they have a traumatic experience? What is it that we don't know yet that is going on in their head, or in their body? And so what I do is I tune in, I get quiet, I know how to tune in and focus. It's a matter of focus. And I start receiving impressions from them. I remember the very first horse that I did this with was a horse who had this huge knot in her hip. She was a Percheron, and gorgeous black beauty of a horse. She had this large knot in her hip, and we were working with her, and all of a sudden I heard her name, that the horse was Valkyrie. Valkyrie told me something that we were talking about, and I started communicating with her, and I asked her about this wound on her hip, and we've been trying to heal it for months. And she started telling me about the original experience and how it happened and how angry she was and how hurt she was. And, and as she shared her heart with me, the knot in her hip literally disappeared. It melted before our eyes.
Huh.
It was just extraordinary.
Now, how would that happen? I mean, give me a little insight into that, because finding out what happened, having the connection with a horse, I assume we're talking telepathically, right?
We are, but remember, telepathic is about hearing someone over a distance, and it's really about exchanging information in an energetic way.
Okay.
So
all right.
Everything has energy, and and every animal lover, every horse lover, if you're connected to your horse, you have a sense of them. You have a feeling, when things are off, or when they've got a little problem, or when you have a knowing. Most all of us, especially the best of us, we have a knowing, and I've just honed in on that gift, that ability to know, and have expanded it out and to do the work that I do.
Okay, so I guess what I'm looking at, though, is the injury.
Yes.
Just evaporated away or melted away, as you said. While were you communicating?
Bigger than my fist in her hip.
Was this something, say, that the horse just was trying to communicate what the problem was and was relieved, let's say, and I'm putting it in layman's terms, was just relieved that somebody finally got it?
Yes, that's exactly what happened, Wayne. You got it. So when someone could finally hear her and understand, she felt respected and heard for the first time, and she was able to let go. You know, massage therapists and body workers will often say that the issues are in the tissues. We hold stress in our body, we hold emotions, we hold pain, we hold injury. A lot of those things come from stuff that we've not been able to let go of yet. And when we're finally conscious enough and able to share it or express it in the right way, we can let go. And when we do, the whole body changes. Everything shifts. So that's exactly what happened with Valkyrie. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, I was relating it to, like, you know, it's sort of like when you're holding a secret in. You know, you're holding in this secret, and it becomes a burden. And eventually, when you can release it, you're no longer burdened.
That's correct, and that works with our horses as well. It's a brilliant insight. Thank you. Yes.
So that's how, you know, people come to you and the horse has got a problem. The vet, everybody, trainers, you can't figure it out. There's something that's just not right. But give us an example of maybe one of the most unusual cases you have seen.
Oh, wow, one of the most unusual. Here's a fun one I think your people will love. When I was first getting started, you know, I worked with Grand Prix dressage horses. I worked with cutting horses, world champion cutting horses. I saved, this is funny, I think your audience will get it. I saved the balls of a young stud.
Okay.
So he went on to have a career as a stallion, but it was only thanks to me that happened, because he was such a pill. He was on the verge of being castrated, and when I walked in and met the owner, the breeder, you know, the trainer, he said, if you need to tell this horse, it was a 4-year-old, gorgeous cutting horse, a quarter horse, great pedigree, everything, I mean, very valuable horse. He said, tell this horse that if he doesn't start paying attention when we're cutting cows, that I'm going to cut him. You know, I can't have this. He will not pay any attention to me. He's interested in mares. That's all he's interested in, and that's not going to do. You know, it won't do. I'm at my limit with him. And this guy was great with stallions, so you know this horse was a hard-headed youngster. You know.
Yeah.
So I worked at it, and I told him, I said, you know, Hickory, if you don't change your attitude here and start paying attention, then this is what's going to happen. And I heard the horse scream in my head, going, what? He's going to do what? Okay, what can I do? How can I fix this? I'm going, okay, here's what to do. Everything he asked you, you give it to him like post haste, right this second. You know, no fooling around. And so I talked to Danny later, that next week. I asked him, I said, hey, how's Hickory doing? And he said, you know, it's the funniest thing. We were riding in competition at the exact time that I was talking to him. It's on a Saturday morning. And he said, I was riding in competition. He was doing his usual foolishness. And he said, all of a sudden, Hickory stopped like a statue. I felt him shudder beneath me. He turned his head and looked at me on his back with his big eye. And from that point on, he did everything I asked him for immediately. I mean, it was just like he was spot on from that point on. So I'm delighted to say that he went on to be a very, very excellent cutting horse.
Yeah, I could say there probably would be more around if they could just be communicated to like that.
Thank you. Exactly. I mean, I come in with mystery lameness problems. I don't know how much time we have, but there's another fun story if you want to hear it.
Sure, go ahead. We have time.
Yeah, I was working with a really valuable dressage horse, and he had almost torn his hind foot off in a trailering accident. But he was unpredictable. He was dangerous. He was very fussy. There was just no way that anybody could get to that foot to really help him much. You know, the vets were kind of giving up on him, the trainers, the body workers, you know, people that were trying to help him. He was just too dangerous. You couldn't get to his hind feet, you know, and work with him very well and without, you know, losing your life. And so they brought me in and they said maybe there's a chance he could cooperate if I could talk to him, if somebody could just talk to him, let him know what we're doing, why we're trying to do it, how he could cooperate to help us help him. And so I asked him, and I talked about it. We made some promises. We negotiated the kind of help that he wanted. And after we had our conversation, the body worker that had brought me in, that was working with it, she was actually able to lay down under him and reach up between those legs and work on that foot and around the hoof and the pastern and all that area. And he was still as a statue. And if we asked him a question, he would be very demonstrative in answering this. It was like shaking his head no, or throwing his head up and down yes, but he stood like a statue.
Wow.
And I'm happy to say that about 6 months or so later, he actually started competing again. So, there's so many things that we can do. Once we know what they're feeling, what they're thinking, where things are coming from, what's happening from their viewpoint, if they actually hurt, what's helping, what doesn't help, what's needed, what's appreciated. I've worked with hunter jumpers who are dangerous, who became, brilliant and cooperative afterwards. It's just extraordinary what we can do if we just open to a conversation and get to know our horse.
Right.
Get to know what they're thinking, what do they need, what do they want.
So many times it's just a thing where they say, people can tell people where it hurts and know what's going on. But if the animal could just communicate, now we're running real short of time here now, but if the animal could just communicate, we could get on the same wavelength. So it's really fascinating. So Val, how do they contact you?
I love that. Thank you. I do have a couple of gifts for your audience. My website is showhorseexpert.com. Showhorseexpert.com. If you'll go there, you'll see more work about working with horses. Pick up your copy of my audio recording. It's called The 5 Steps to Improved Performance from Your Horse. And if you're having problems, there's a button there. You can apply for a complimentary horse problem assessment and strategy session. It's under appointments. So I have limited space, so hopefully the first 10 people will get in.
Well, Val, we want to thank you very much for joining us here on Speaking of Horses. Do go to our website and check it out and learn all about it. Thank you, Val, very much. Val Heart from San Antonio, Texas, here on Speaking of Horses. Well, that's our show. I'm your host, Wayne Williams. Speaking of Horses, we'll be back next week with a brand new show. Or join us at speakingofhorses.com.